History has recorded some extraordinary falls from grace, instances where the only option left for an individual is to resign. Politicians are often masters in the art of quitting, usually in the wake of a scandal or such like. But there are also occasions where VIPs and celebrities have thrown in the towel on points of principle, or as an example of civic virtue. And sometimes stepping down is simply because of burnout. Whatever the reasons, when a prominent person chooses to jump before being pushed, it's guaranteed to make headlines. So, let's go and find out which is the most famous resignations. Cincinnatus, Roman patrician, statesman, and military leader of the early Roman Republic, Lucius Quinctius Cincinnatus is celebrated for leaving his plow standing in a field, saying farewell to his wife, and leading the Romans to victory against the Equians in 458 BCE. 15 days later, with the crisis resolved, Cincinnatus resigned his commission and returned to his plow. Julius Caesar. Gaius Julius Caesar first assumed the role of dictator in 49 BCE. However, once he had secured his election as consul for the following year, he resigned after just 11 days and retired to private life. He returned to politics in February 44 BCE, as dictator perpetuo means life dictatorship. On March 15th of that year, Julius Caesar was assassinated. George Washington. On December 23, 1783, General George Washington resigned his commission to Congress as Commander-in-Chief of the Army at Annapolis, Maryland, and returned to civilian life. 6 years later, he was the first President of the United States, serving from 1789 to 1797. Napoleon Bonaparte. His abdication of the throne on April 11, 1814, was the last great act of Napoleon Bonaparte. By resigning as emperor after facing military defeat and pressure from European powers during the War of the Sixth Coalition, Napoleon sealed his own fate, a destiny ratified by the Treaty of Fontainebleau that saw the crestfallen former leader of France exiled to Elba. Benito Mussolini. As he lost his grip on fascism in Italy, Benito Mussolini had no other option but to resign as prime minister on July 26, 1943. In September, German paratroopers and Waffen-SS commandos rescued the deposed dictator from custody in the Hotel Campo Imperatore. After the raid, Adolf Hitler put Mussolini in charge of a puppet state in German-occupied northern Italy. He was eventually captured by Italian communist partisans and executed along with his mistress, Clara Petacci. Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi resigned from the Indian National Congress on October 28, 1934, to pursue his own vision of an independent India. Gandhi was assassinated on January 30, 1948, by a Hindu extremist who believed he'd been too conciliatory to the Indian subcontinent's large Muslim minority. Winston Churchill. British statesman Winston Churchill, who led Great Britain in an alliance with the United States and the Soviet Union that defeated the Axis powers in the Second World War, resigned on April 5, 1955, after his party's electoral defeat by the Labour Party. He remained in Parliament until 1964, the year before his death. John Profumo. In one of the biggest scandals in British political history, John Profumo, the Secretary of State for War, resigned his position on June 5, 1963, after admitting that he had lied to his wife, his cabinet colleagues, and the nation about an affair with a 19-year-old model, Christine Keeler. Public interest was heightened by reports that Keeler may have been simultaneously involved with a Soviet naval attaché, thereby creating a possible national security risk. Robert F. Kennedy. Robert F. Kennedy resigned as Attorney General of the United States on September 3, 1964, to run for the U.S. Senate representing New York, a seat he won the following year, and which he held until his assassination in June 1968, when he was running for the Democratic presidential nomination. Nikita Khrushchev. On October 14, 1964, Nikita Khrushchev resigned as premier of the USSR after a coup orchestrated by his protege and deputy, Leonid Brezhnev. Khrushchev's ousting was a key moment in the history of the Soviet Union. Jim Brown. American NFL legend Jim Brown stunned sports fans when he announced he was quitting football to devote himself to acting and promoting racial equality. He did this on July 13, 1966, While filming The Dirty Dozen on location in England, Brown told reporters that, after much deliberation, "I have come to the conclusion that I will retire this season. My ambition right now is to devote as much time as possible to the National Negro Industrial and Economic Union project, which stresses full participation of Negroes in the mainstream of the American economy."
Charles de Gaulle.
Charles de Gaulle resigned as President of France on April 28, 1969, following defeat in a referendum on political reforms. De Gaulle was previously an army officer and statesman who led the Free French forces against Nazi Germany in the Second World War. Spiro Agnew. Vice President of the United States Spiro Agnew resigned on October 10, 1973, after answering a plea of no contest to a charge of tax evasion while he was governor of Maryland. Agnew, who was serving under Richard Nixon at the time, is pictured announcing his decision to news crews outside the federal court building in Baltimore. Willy Brandt. West German Chancellor Willy Brandt was forced to resign on May 6, 1974, in the wake of the so-called Guillaume affair. One of Brandt's personal assistants, Gunter Guillaume, was revealed as a spy for the East German state. The subsequent publicity surrounding the scandal made Brandt's position untenable. Guillaume is seen here in sunglasses sitting behind Brandt. Richard Nixon. On the evening of August 8, 1974, President Nixon addressed the nation and announced his intention to resign amid the Watergate scandal. The following morning, August 9, Nixon submitted a signed letter of resignation to Secretary of State Henry Kissinger, becoming the only U.S. president to resign from office. Nixon is pictured at the White House with his family after his resignation. Watergate remains the most notorious political scandal in American history. Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan resigned as governor of California in 1975, midway through his second term, to focus on his campaign for the Republican presidential nomination. He eventually served as the 40th President of the United States from 1981 to 1989. Harold Wilson. On March 16, 1976, British Prime Minister Harold Wilson caused a political sensation when he announced he was to resign, just over 2 years into his second stint as Prime Minister. He's pictured announcing his resignation at a press conference held at the Ministry of Defense in London. Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs resigned, some say, was fired as CEO of Apple Incorporated in 1985 following a long-running dispute with other top executives. In 1997, Jobs returned to the company he co-founded to cement his reputation as one of the most revolutionary pioneers of the computer age. On August 24, 2011, just 6 weeks before his death, Steve Jobs announced his resignation as CEO. Margaret Thatcher. British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher's 11-year premiership ended abruptly and embarrassingly on November 22, 1990, after a challenge was launched to her leadership by members of her own cabinet. She's pictured with husband Dennis leaving 10 Downing Street in London after the axe fell. Mikhail Gorbachev. The resignation of Mikhail Gorbachev as Soviet president on December 25, 1991, effectively marked the end of the USSR. He announced his decision in a live televised address to the nation, an event that also drew to a close 74 years of Soviet history. Kurt Waldheim. Revelations that surfaced in 1986 of his role as an intelligence officer in Nazi Germany's Wehrmacht during the Second World War, plus allegations of participation in Nazi atrocities, prompted Kurt Waldheim not to seek re-election in 1992 as president of Austria. He had already been banned from entering the United States under suspicion of war crimes. Nelson Mandela. As early as 1996, Nelson Mandela hinted that he would not be seeking a second term as president of South Africa. On June 14, 1999, he resigned from office, setting an example of a peaceful transition of power. Ehud Barak. Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak announced his resignation during a press conference on December 9, 2000, after coming under harsh criticism from political opponents and members of his own party for his handling of 2.5 months of Israeli-Palestinian violence. He later quit as labor leader and as a member of the Knesset. Thabo Mbeki. Thabo Mbeki resigned his position as president of South Africa on September 24, 2008, after the country's ruling party formally requested he relinquish power amid allegations of misconduct. Silvio Berlusconi. The end of Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi's 17-year scandal-plagued domination of Italian politics came with his resignation on November 13, 2011, amid a crippling economic and financial crisis. Pope Benedict XVI. The decision by Pope Benedict XVI to resign as pontiff on February 11, 2013, made history. His resignation was the first by a pope since Gregory XII in 1415, and the first on a pope's initiative since Celestine V in 1294. Pope Benedict cited a lack of strength of mind and body due to his advanced age as the reason for stepping down. Jacinda Ardern. Jacinda Ardern's sudden resignation as Prime Minister of New Zealand surprised and saddened the international community. Announcing her decision on January 19, 2023, at a press conference, Ardern admitted she no longer had enough in the tank to do the job. Nicola Sturgeon. After more than 8 years as First Minister, spanning 3 separate Scottish Parliament terms, Nicola Sturgeon unexpectedly tendered her resignation from office on March 28, 2023. She was subsequently arrested by police investigating allegations of financial misconduct, but later released without charge. Boris Johnson. Having already resigned as Conservative Party leader on July 7, 2022, Boris Johnson was then ousted as Prime Minister on September 6. On June 9, 2023, Johnson quit as a member of Parliament amid allegations that he knowingly or recklessly misled Parliament over Partygate, a political scandal about gatherings of government and Conservative Party staff during the COVID-19 pandemic. Jurgen Klopp. On January 26, 2024, a weary-looking and at times emotional Jurgen Klopp announced that he would be leaving Premier League club Liverpool at the end of the current season. The resignation of the German manager, widely regarded as one of the best in the world, will bring to an end a hugely successful 9-year spell at the English club. Katalin Novak. Hungarian President Katalin Novak resigned on February 10, 2024, after coming under fire for pardoning a man convicted of helping to cover up sexual abuse in a children's home. She announced her departure in a televised message. Which was the shocking resignation? Please comment below. Thank you for watching. Please do subscribe for more information.